Welcome back to another Around the Grounds podcast, brought to you, as always, by Groundhopper Soccer Guides. I'm your host, Brian Reinhardt. Joining me again, Paul Gerald, owner, founder, Groundhopper Soccer Guides. He just checked his phone for some Champions League scores. So, Paul, season's winding down everywhere. This is a great time in spring right now.
Yeah, it's also a really fun time to be over there. We're always doing consultations with clients, and just recently I was telling somebody you picked exactly the right time to go. You know, you got midweek European games, you got weekend league games at the so-called business end of the season. You're getting into playoffs in the football league. And the weather's okay. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing.
So last time we got together for Vodcast, we talked about your 92. So we got a lot of great feedback on that. Had a lot of people watch it, almost over 1,000 views on YouTube. Just some great content last time. Everybody was really curious about your 92 journey.
Yeah, I think the fact, that an American has done it is of particular interest. A lot of Americans don't really know what it is, and a lot of English people know what it is, but haven't done it. So next step is I just got to join the official 92 club. I heard from somebody at the club, and I need to jump through a couple of administrative hoops so that I'll be a proper member and have a number and everything. I'm excited.
You'll definitely, we'll have to check back with you about that, because we weren't even sure if there was a club. So
right. So that's a correction that we can offer to the last video. Yes, there is a 92 club. So I'll more to come on that. So.
Kind of sticking with the 92 theme, we're back today and we're going to talk about this is your list, Paul, your top 5 clubs, grounds to visit outside the Premier League. And you gave me a list beforehand, so we're going to go over that. But I think we have to start out with, everybody thinks going to the Premier League, you have to go to Chelsea, you have to go to Liverpool, or just go to any Premier League game. But why would you tell people maybe go to the Championship, maybe go to League One? What's so fascinating about going to some of these smaller clubs at smaller grounds?
Well, first, you should go to Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, all of those. Those are amazing places to go. I don't mean to discount those at all. It is just a different experience. And I would just encourage people to not think that the best and the biggest are the only ones that are interesting. Going to a game at a football league club, the advantages are, okay, I mean, it's cheaper, right? It's less glamorous, perhaps, but it's also, you have a much better chance of, being among the very few tourists that are there. The people sitting around you, often, I'll buy club tickets from one of the clubs, and what I'm buying is somebody's season ticket. They couldn't make it this week, so they put it back for sale up on the club website. And so I'm sitting in Tom's seat. And so I'm sitting with Tom's friends. And eventually, there's even been times when they called me Tom or whatever the name was. And so, you're sitting, people often say they want to have an authentic experience. And it's all authentic, but sitting next to somebody else, a non-British person at a big Premier League game is one thing. Sitting next to a longtime fan of Leyton Orient at a game there is just a different kind of experience. And we just encourage people to try to have both.
So you gave me your list. These are no particular order. We're not trying to rile up any fan bases or anything. And
also, I may have said it's the 5 best, but let's just head off any arguments and fights here. It's not like number 6 on the list is not worth mentioning. I just mean, here's 5 really good representative places that I think, that to me are interesting and worth checking out. And I'll let the arguments flow.
I was going to say, and some of these, I know one in particular, but it was purely based on your experience there. You maybe go back the next week, you don't have that same experience, but it kind of depends when you go to certain games, who they're playing, if they're, So,
and that is one thing I try to do, by the way, in any football league game. If you're going to go all the way to, I don't know, Grimsby Town, you might as well go when they're playing Lincoln City or Scunthorpe, one of the teams that they don't like, right? So try to pick your spots. But sometimes when you're doing the 92, you just wind up at Northampton Town versus Bristol Rovers or whatever it is, and it rains and it's 0-0 and everybody shrugs and goes home. So that's just part of you're rolling the dice. But yeah, all of these are based on my experience going there, and also not just the stadium or the atmosphere, but just kind of the whole thing, the city, the whole just experience of going to a game there. And again, if your club is not on this list, we'd love to hear from you, but it's nothing personal. In fact, the first one I already know we're going to have arguments, so let's just go ahead. So,
well, I hope this is the same first one because they're in no order, not even alphabetical order. But
the first one that I happened to put on the list. So
first one on the list that you gave me, they were just in the Premier League 2 seasons ago, so very recent, but a great stadium, great nickname, and a little bit of trivia here: the first English club to defeat Bayern in Munich in the UEFA, what was used to be the UEFA Cup back in '94.
That's right.
Paul, who is this team? Tell us about your experience.
This is Norwich City, and immediate apology to the good people of Ipswich Town. I also enjoyed my day at Portman Road, and I sincerely hope that they get out of the championship this year so everybody can see football at Premier League football at Ipswich Town. I give the nod here, if you will, just as a tourist. With all due respect, I'd rather go to Norwich than Ipswich. It's a lovely medieval city. It has about 1,000-year-old cathedral. It's got a very large medieval quarter that is very well preserved. Lots of little cool shops and bars and restaurants. Happens to have, I think, probably the best fish and chips I ever had. A place called Grosvenor Fish and Chips. In fact, not just fish. I think they fry everything that has at any time crawled, walked, or swam on the face of the earth. There's an entire wall of things, of former critters that they'll fry for you. Just a beautiful city. They have a really nice market downtown. The stadium's a short walk from the station, sorry. And it's just a cool... It's in town, the stadium, and it's a beautiful stadium. And I happened to see them play Ipswich Town, which was a great atmosphere, a 1-1 game. But to me, it's just kind of the sweet spot. Like, they're a proper big club. They have won things. They did, in fact, beat Bayern Munich away. And yet it is a very traditional stadium in the middle of an interesting city that's about 2 hours by train from London. So you could do it as a day trip, but go spend the night,
Okay.
And the Canaries, right?
I was going to say the Canaries.
The long tradition, I don't know why, but a long tradition of raising canaries in the area.
Yeah, the stadium looks tremendous. Next club. Cool. I was going to say next club. Now, this is a club, they already being promoted for next year. They won League One this year. They're going up to the championship. My trivia fact about them: one of only 5 English clubs to have been a champion of the top 4 tiers of the English football pyramid. That means they won the Premier League. It wasn't the Premier League, but back in the late 40s.
Okay.
What's the second club on your list here, Paul?
That would be Portsmouth, aka Pompey. That down on the south coast, couple of hours maybe south of London. Portsmouth, the city, is the traditional home of the English Navy. So if you have any interest in naval history, you can go see the ship, the exact spot where Admiral Nelson was standing when he was killed by a sniper. I think that was kind of where they planned and launched the D-Day invasion. So a lot of military and naval history there. It's been a big, well-supported club for a long, long time, and they have played in the same spot for a long, long time. Some of their stadium is quite old. I think one stand goes back, maybe 2 stands go back to about the 1920s. They just, like, to me, the definition of a fan base and a club that has stayed together and stayed big despite not winning anything and frankly being kind of a mess recently. I say not winning anything, I mean recently. They won the FA Cup back in the 80s or 90s, I think. Just a big fan base. It's always hard to get tickets there, even when they're stuck down in League One. But you're right. They're going to be championship for the 24-25 season. And I think Fratton Park is just a great place to go to games, and the city itself is interesting. So. And when you watch them, listen for their famous chant, "Play up Pompey," which goes in time with the local church bells. Play up Pompey, Pompey, play up. And then the Southampton fans, and by the way, if they do get to the championship, Southampton will still be there, and that is a game you need to watch. And yeah, you will hear them sing "Fuck off, Pompey, Pompey, fuck off," and then they'll go back and forth. So it is a bitter, bitter rivalry. And again, just a couple hours from London. So many of our people are London focused, and that makes sense. But it's only a couple hours away. Go down to Portsmouth.
Our next club, we're talking about promotion again, and this club's going from League Two up to League One. And you had a great experience there. I'm going to have you share that. But this club has been around for 141 years of English football. There's a lot of tradition over there, but since 1883 for this club, that to me was tremendous.
Yeah, we're talking about Stockport County, who many people might recognize from the Wrexham TV show as being a club that they were battling it out for promotion, I think in season 1. Season 2, they were locked in battle with Notts County. But Stockport is just on the outside of Manchester. I've gotten in trouble before by calling it a suburb. I don't know what the status of that is, but all I know is you get on Manchester, you got a train in Manchester Piccadilly, and the first stop out is Stockport. And just past that, you can see part of the stadium there on the right. So I was always intrigued by that. I went there, and yeah, again, some really old parts of that stadium. And I sat next to a gentleman. I asked him how long he's been coming to games. And I think he said since 1948. I mean, he said his dad came home from the war and started taking him to games. And it occurred to me that the stadium is at least that old. And I said, "Where were you sitting back at your first game?" And he just pointed and said, "Right over there." It's like in this stadium, in that stand, right over there when his dad came back from the war. So, and that's going to be the case at a lot of stadiums, but yeah, I just that experience of watching that game with him, and they also won the game 3-0, and somebody had a hat trick, and that was a lot of fun. But it just, again, kind of the perfect example of like, if you're in Manchester to see City or United on Sunday, and you see the Stockport County are playing on Saturday, just go out there. It's like a 20-minute train ride, and it's a 5 or 10-minute walk from the station to the stadium, and it's just a proper old ground. And yeah, they're on the serious rise. I think that they won League Two this year, didn't they? And so they're going to be League One next year. They finished just ahead of Wrexham, so they're another. Somebody is investing money in that club, just like at Wrexham, and moving on up the leagues. So to see them succeeding is really exciting.
Moving down your list. Now, I'm going to need a little bit of help with this club because unfortunately, the only thing I know about them, the 1985 fire at their stadium claimed a lot of lives, but a League Two squad.
Yeah, Bradford City. Yes, probably most famous because part of their stadium burned down on live television in 1985 when they were supposed to be celebrating the division championship that they had just won. It was an old wooden stand with a bunch of garbage piled up underneath, and a cigarette or something fell down there, and off it went. Killed 50 people, I think. So a terrible disaster, but that's not why, they should be known. They should be known because in that world, League Two, I think they've occasionally been League One. I mean, they average like 20,000 people a game, maybe more. They have a big stadium, big fan base. And I always admire a fan base that is big and loyal and enthusiastic, even if the club doesn't win anything. And Bradford City hasn't won anything in a long time. And where are they, by the way? They're near Manchester. Kind of forget which direction, but I'm sure people will jump on the ignorant American for not understanding his British geography, and I'll put my hand up. But it's close. It's up there. I did it as a day trip. And the main thing is when I told British people or English people I was going to Bradford, they said, "Oh, you got to get some curry." So there's a lot of good curry up there. And on the walk from the station out to the stadium, I don't know, I must have passed 20 bars full of Bradford City fans. And it's just a neat old stadium. It's kind of funny because it's really big on two sides and then much smaller on the one side. And then when I was there, the one area behind the goal wasn't even being used. And but just to go down, talk about a traditional team in a pretty typical Northern English city, but it's just, they love that club. It's just like when people watch Wrexham and people, they really love that club. Like, well, everybody loves their club, but in a place like Bradford, It's just a big crowd. I think that's the most interesting thing to me.
Wrapping up here, this is a League One club, and it's fan owned, um, owned by the club supporter. So I'm going to ask you one, obviously your experience, but when you say something's fan owned, what does that mean?
In this case, what it means is that Exeter City Football Club got into some kind of financial problem 20 or 30 years ago, and they were about to be wound up, as they say. It was going to go away. It was going to go out of business, cease to exist. And the supporters got together and pulled a bunch of money and purchased it, and they have owned it ever since. And they have made improvements to the stadium. They have built it up into a League One club when I think it was non-league for a little while. So that is just an interesting story to me. They are not a club that has succeeded because some wealthy person purchased them and poured money into it. They've done it in a sustainable way and by putting the fans first. And it's a beautiful city. Again, by the way, similar to Norwich, happens to be the other direction. It's a couple hours west of London, and beautiful old medieval city, pubs going back to centuries, a beautiful cathedral there, well worth a visit. And then the stadium is a short distance from the center of town, and there's a really nice club, like fan club right next to it, and a little food area and everything. And they have behind the goal what they say is the largest standing only terrace in the entire English Football League, which is called the Big Bank. And I think it seats about 4,500 people. So when I was there, it was packed, and it was just a very festive. It happened to be sunny that day too. It was probably rare out in that part of the world, but yeah, great city, interesting area because you're on the way out to Dorset and all of that. Their great rival are Plymouth Argyle. So if they ever run into each other, I think Plymouth are in danger of going back down to League One. So if you can see the two of them play, that would be cool. And it's just, beautiful city, good story, interesting stadium. So it's what it's all about.
We went all around there. Many different leagues, many different cities. Obviously, when you do the 92, you're well traveled, but that was a nice little list you put together for us.
Well, thank you. I'll be interested to see what people think. I'm sure people will stick up for their club for not being on the list, but I'd like to hear where other people have gone that they think folks should check out.
And get in contact with Paul and his crew over there at Groundhopper Soccer Guides. We're going to put plenty of links in the description of this video. Still time to get over there to watch some football before the spring ends here. So, Paul, exciting. I'm going to have to think about what list to ask you for next time. You have to give me a suggestion. We might have to take a poll somehow, too. What do people want to hear?
Yeah, let us know. Maybe we will do the 5 worst just to set people off.
Okay. We like that a little bit. Well, thank everybody for listening and watching us today. This was your Around the Grounds vodcast, and hopefully Groundhopper Soccer Guys can get you to the grounds.